Tonight, we're going to hear from Kathy and Tony Mommsen. They are halfway through an amazing journey. From August 2nd to September 15th, they biked and canoed halfway around the perimeter of Minnesota, basically from St. Croix Falls, Wisconsin to International Falls. And all of the way that they went, they traveled either by canoeing with their bikes loaded in their canoe or by biking while pulling the canoe behind the bikes. And so tonight they're going to tell us all about this adventure. One of the things that they did is they did a watercolor sketch each day of the trip. And next summer they're planning on finishing the trip. Kathy and Tony have been married for a long, long time, they tell me. They've always done outdoor stuff, including a Boundary Waters trip every year, cross-country skiing in the Midwest and in the mountains, and a few bike tours in Europe, the Pacific Northwest, California, and New Mexico. And with each trip, they ask themselves, how do we make our day-to-day lives feel as relaxed as our trips? So Kathy and Tony, take it away.
A few years ago, I heard about a guy who bicycled the perimeter of Texas, and I thought to myself, Minnesota's border is more interesting than Texas. Most of it's water, and most of it can be canoed. Our plan was to travel the perimeter of Minnesota by canoeing where there's water and biking where there's not. We converted an old bike trailer for kids to one that will pull a canoe, and experimented with fitting two bikes and all our camping gear in the canoe. The canoe is a beat up old Winona Odyssey.
Tony is a dreamer and a planner of human-powered trips. He's also an inventor of gadgets, a problem solver, the map expert to make the dreams come true. I'm the ceramic artist and an adventurer, and sometimes my artwork gets in the way of going on all of Tony's adventures. When he planned this trip, I thought it'd be too much time away from my artwork, and I loved the sound of going around in Minnesota, but I just wanted to either bike or canoe each section. Tony liked how simple the trip sounded to have both. I decided I'd go for 45 days, and I was going to be his canoe partner in the BWCA, and we had a permit for August 2nd for the Little Vermilion Lake. The plan was to start at International Falls, paddle the boundary route without the bikes, and then pick up the bikes in Grand Portage. With the drought and the fires, we lost our BWCA permit, so we moved our start to the St. Croix Falls River, St. Croix Falls, Wisconsin.
Kathy has always sketched when we travel, and for the last couple of years I have too. For this trip, we packed enough paper and supplies for each of us to do one sketch each day. The trip is divided into sections.
Okay.
The east is the first section, down the St. Croix and Mississippi rivers. We started at my mom's house in St. Croix Falls, Wisconsin. Tony pulled the canoe, that's me, and Kathy carried most of the camping gear, food, and clothing. At Interstate Park, we put the canoe in the water, put the bikes in, wheels up, and stuffed in the trailer, panniers, and 5 gallons of water. We paddled down the St. Croix River. It was a great place to start since we paddled this section of the river 100 times. We joined the Mississippi after Prescott. We expected the Mississippi to be busy, but it was very quiet. The Mississippi River was a delight to paddle, and navigating was straightforward. The scenery was spectacular with rock cliffs, bluffs, sand beaches, and adorable river towns. It never grew old. Camping was very easy. We searched for a flat area above the water and a sand beach for landing. The only real challenges were heavy boat traffic for just a couple miles and waves on Lake Pepin that forced us to camp early one night. Walks. Let me get past all of this.
I never did my thing.
Okay.
On a solo trip last year, Tony portaged around the locks at Hastings. So we assumed and dreaded the thought of portaging all the locks down the Mississippi. At our first lock, which was number 3, north of Red Wing, the lock operator didn't think portaging was possible and said, you should just lock through. Just ring the bell. People do this, go through this all the time. So we did just that. We paddled along the lock wall until we found the rope and the signal sign that said, pull the cord to notify lockage. We pulled it, the bell rang, and a few minutes later, the gates opened. We paddled in. A guy threw us each ropes to hold. The gate closed. We felt the water level dropping. Total drop was about 10 to 12 feet. As we traveled through lock 3 or any of the locks down to Lake Crescent, we never felt tippy. Even with the bicycles in the canoe, we reached the lower level. The giant steel gates opened. We paddled out and into slightly turbulent water, so much easier than portaging. Down the river, we locked through 7 locks. Each time it was fun and it was actually kind of exotic.
At the sand point on Lake Pepin, we encountered big waves when we tried to round the point and stopped for a day. It may not have been completely legal to camp there, but we were kind of stranded. It was pretty calm on the north side of this land spit, but if we walked to the other side, the wind was howling and the whitecaps were crashing on the shore. We departed early the next day and the lake was calm.
Okay, there's something simple about having everything with you, and then there's the downside, and that's trying to land. With the bicycles tied into the canoe, we needed a nice sand beach to drag up on. We were so excited to see an easy landing in Stockholm. We could see the campground. We had heard about a good bakery in this town, and it also showed up on our Google Maps. We got to the landing with a friendly campers telling us where things were. Tony filled up 5 gallons of water, and I used the bike share bike to go to the bakery. I walked in and the owner said in 7 minutes, the cranberry walnut bread will be out, and she already sold all her completed Swedish donuts, but just needed to dress more. Dress more means to brush them with butter, dip them in cinnamon sugar. Both were amazing. Downstream from Wabasha, we were departing our campsite at sunrise, and we saw storm clouds rolling in, and we pulled the canoe up on shore, set our tent back up, and rode out the storm. The sky cleared. The canoe had 6 inches in the bottom. We emptied the water and then loaded the canoes and paddled to Alma, Wisconsin. And as we paddled through the Alma lock, the lockmaster said he thought that was the end of the stormy weather. And just then we turned around and saw a giant storm cloud. We pulled out onto an island, put on our rain gear and hunkered down and froze in the downpour for a couple hours. The rain cleared and we camped right there. Later we learned it had rained 9 inches. This is in a year of drought.
We packed food for the entire 9 days on the Mississippi. We had a bunch of dried soups and chili left over from a previous BWCA trip. Each evening, we would cook our dinner, usually something like quinoa and soup. After dinner, we'd cook a similar meal for lunch the next day. For breakfast, it was oatmeal with nuts and craisins. After we left the Mississippi and started biking, we would shop for meals most every day. We stuck with oatmeal for breakfast, and for lunch and dinners, we went for things like pocket bread, refried beans, and veggies with hot sauce. The southern section. We exited the Mississippi River at La Crescent.
Oh, wait, right here. So wait, that's right over here.
We originally planned to paddle another day to the Iowa border, but from La Crescent, we could access the Root River Bike Trail, which would give us 40 flat traffic-free miles to get us used to pulling a canoe and our extra weight. First things first was dry socks and shoes. Oh, about the trailer, the canoe thwart was removed and threaded through the bike frames when we paddled. We bought a used bike trailer with one-sided axles and a quick release wheels. Around the quick release module, I made a rectangle out of aluminum tubing and added foam pool noodles to rest the canoe. I bought a special seat post attachment and pull bar from a Canadian company called Wyke. You can see that connection like that. Very slick.
That's it. No, that's good. Okay. Okay, I felt like an amphibian going from water to land. We had done many canoe trips and many bike trips, but the combination was profound. With human-powered transportation, you are in one ecosystem and you really feel like you know it. And slowly it changes and you cannot believe the change. The quietness of the upper St. Croix, the big boats and the leisure boats from Hudson to Prescott, and then the raw feeling of the Mississippi. You hear the trains on both sides shores whistling. You feel the weight of 9 barges tied together. You see the reason cities are where they are. And then we got to La Crosse, and the rivers seem to be a pain. The rivers seem to be a pain for cities. They need to build bridges over every stream and river, and you are no longer down low, but you are biking over the stream, and that moments before were channels going off into the distance and are now forming a valley.
We pedaled through La Crescent to the town of Houston. We camped 2 nights in the city park where we got our first shower in 2 weeks, fixed broken tent poles, acquired more fuel for our stove, and attended a musical performance by the Houston High School. It was the best hits of musicals. The flat, smooth Root River Trail was a perfect practice for pulling a canoe. No cars, no worries. We were able to enjoy the river, the towns, the scenery. Another cyclist commented, "That's a good idea." They thought we were shuttling our canoe up the Root River, which would have been a great idea. At the end of the 40-mile trail, we camped in Preston and attended Movies in the Park, where Cheaper by the Dozen was playing.
In the town of Spring Valley, we were excited to see a bakery. It turned out to be permanently closed. And by the post office, we met a woman who told us that the baker died on Good Friday 2 years earlier, and all the recipes were in the baker's head. That's more Spring Valley. These are the churches. This is where Laura Ingalls Wilder is, so that these are the churches. And that's through the town of Spring Valley.
Southern Minnesota was far more interesting than we expected. We tried to link rail to trails together. We hit 4 of them: the Root River, the Shooting Star, Blazing Star, and Casey Jones. When not on bike trails, the roads were usually quiet and smooth. In southern Minnesota, we had just one high traffic area near Fairmont, where trucks were delivering corn to an ethanol plant. For 5 miles, it was pretty intense. We tried to camp in state parks. After a day biking in the summer sun, it was great to relax in the shade of big trees. We had a policy. We had to stop and walk around in every town. Some were pretty cute, churches and train stations. People stopped us several times to ask about our rig. As we biked through towns, people would yell out, "Can I have a ride in that?" A guy from Blue Earth wanted to learn how to pull his kayak behind his bike.
All the land in southern Minnesota is privately owned, and it turned out cemeteries were pretty much the only place we could stop for breaks. And it's always interesting to walk around looking at gravestones.
Our biggest concern when starting the trip was pulling a canoe on roads over distance. It turned out to be not much of a problem. We traveled slowly, about 7 miles per hour, and easy. Many days I never shipped it out of my smallest of 3 chain rings. Knowing where the canoe wheels were relative to the edge of the road was tricky. When there were rumble strips, I would have to choose whether to bike with one trailer wheel on each side of the strip, or with the bike and canoe totally out in the road. For visibility, we had bright flashing lights on the back of the canoe and the back of Kathy's bike. Cars always gave us a wide berth.
In southwest Minnesota, we experienced the expansiveness of the prairie. We saw the windmills, windmill after windmill, thousands of them. Endless fields of corn and trucks carrying corn to ethanol plants, and occasionally free tomatoes. The Casey Jones Trail led us our last 10 miles into Pipestone, and even though it was partially dirt, it was nice that day to get off the road. We're now making our corner going up west. So we're going to that little part there. Okay.
We spent a layover day in Pipestone, checking out the Pipestone National Monument, where we could see where Pipestone is still quarried. We checked out historic buildings in Pipestone made of Sioux quartzite, like the county courthouse,
Public library.
public library, yeah. Gargoyles. And we ate pie. More than one person said we should try the pie at Lang's. It was good. We went to the citywide party, which was called Everything But the Fishing Contest Party.
What happened to the fish again?
They,
All the fish died somehow, and so they couldn't fish, so they had everything but the fishing. Okay.
yep, water slides and music and a free dinner.
Concerned about wind and traffic, we left Pipestone at 5 a.m. and we still ended up with a 40-mile-an-hour intense headwinds. So we camped in Lake Hendrickson City Park, where they had special camping just for bike areas.
They have her name.
They had her name there when we got there. So that one we had to call ahead and in the city office, and they had a spot for us. And then this is in the lake. They was right on a lake, so these are the people playing in the lake that day. And then the next day we were in Marietta, and this was a Frank Lloyd Wright house in Marietta. It's the first year we were married, which was 40 years ago. I applied for a job at this school, so all we have left now is this tombstone of where the school was. I got a job actually in Madison, which was 30 miles away. But I did not get that job, and lucky, I guess I didn't get it because the school's no longer there.
We made it to Ortonville in time for the Corn Days Parade, but sadly the corn feed was over. 40 years ago, I taught art in Ortonville. Kathy taught in Madison. 40 years ago, we also attended the corn feed, the best corn on the cob ever, and sad to have missed it by just a couple hours this year. While in town, we walked by my old school and the location of our old house. It was $120 a month plus $5 a month to rent the refrigerator.
And this was at the RV park in north of Ortonville. Big Stone Lake. So after camping in Ortonville, we switched back to the canoe mode and hit the 26-mile long Big Stone Lake on a calm day. We camped at Hartford Beach in South Dakota. We worried a tiny bit about stopping to camp on such a calm day, but it was the forecast called for more calm in the next few days. And it was such a warm, peaceful night that we just left some things out before we went to bed. Okay, this is the state park. These are the state, yeah, yeah, because that's all the Hartford Beach State Park. It was beautiful. And then Tony mentioned one day that he kind of thought our tent was about one storm away from being a rag. And we woke up at 3:30 this morning to lightning. We had a few minutes to put away some of the things we had left out. And moments later, it started blowing all the way up Big Stone Lake. Thunder so loud for so long, it blew a clip off our tent. The tent was blowing over, and so we needed to hold the clip for half an hour. It was still lightning at 6:30 in the morning. And when we were just a little surprised because we thought we were in a drought, and we were sure seemed to be getting our share of rain. We made it through, but a man was injured and went to the hospital trying to save his awning for his RV right next to us. So we felt lucky.
We paddled across Big Stone Lake, then biked over the Continental Divide to Lake Traverse. The water was very low in the Bois de Sioux River, so we biked the full length of it. So the Bois de Sioux is 30 miles long or something that flows into,
Is there a map that I can show?
I don't know,
Okay.
forms the Red River of the North with a couple other rivers. But that was too dry to paddle. And Eric Severide paddled that one before, but we were late in the year.
And it was a drought, remember?
And it was a drought. Don't forget it was a drought. To the headwaters so we biked to the headwaters of the Red River at Wahpeton, North Dakota, where we camped in the park next to the zoo, the zebra and the rhino area.
And we were camped right here by the fence. So the camping is right, you're camping right here. That was our view from our tent,
You
the
could
rhino.
hear the rhinos walking
Yeah.
by our tent. We also caught the band Croix and crew at the Park Pavilion. They were amazing. The Red River is the next section. Just there it is. The Red River was fun to paddle and interesting to look at from beginning to end. The first day of paddling, we experienced hard bottoms and small rapids. After that day, the river bottom and banks were very muddy, and it was difficult to stand on the shore even for a few minutes. We had a canoe map showing landings, camp spots, rock dams, and river miles. The Red River in the US is 440 miles by river and 200 miles by road. Last summer, our son Mike says, you don't have to paddle all of the Red, you can switch it up with biking. So we did. We alternated 2 to 3 days canoeing and 1 day biking. We planned our days to avoid rock dams and use campsites and landings. I'm right here. I don't know where we are on this slideshow. We enjoyed the change of scenery while in our canoe. We'd see high mud banks, dead trees standing upright or tangled in giant piles on the river bends. We'd see geese, pelicans, even a pelican flying in formation with geese. We saw only a handful of people, usually with a warning of some terrible current or something around the next bend. The bends were insane, often over 180 degrees.
Where's my section? This is the worst moment of the trip. We had a late start because of rain. The mud made it so hard to stop. It was even hard to get out to go to the bathroom. We went past the campsite that was marked on the map, and we found out later that it was just a proposed campsite. So we had to get out at this bridge, and it was so hard to climb that hill, and it was just about dark. So carrying up that canoe, so you can see Tony down at the very bottom there, he is down there. So we had to go through all these weeds we bring our stuff up that hill. And then we found out we had a hole in our canoe. Then we had to bike to the town of Wolverton in the dark, and there were no facilities at the town campground. So that was kind of the worst day of our, oh, and it rained. So during all this, it was raining. That's true. Okay. Oh, and then we biked through Fargo on bike trails, and we picked up fiberglass and epoxy in Fargo, and we were able to fix our canoe at the Headroom Community Park where we camped. So there was our hole that we wonderfully put in on our canoe so that we were able to fix it, and it made it and it was sunny and warm at this place. So this was really nice.
And free.
And free. It was a free one, that's true.
On our bikes, we would see the endless flatness of ancient Lake Agassiz. We found quiet roads not far from the river.
I'm on the beats. Oh, you're okay. Good.
To our left, we saw the cottonwood trees along the edges of the Red River. To our right, we were sugar beet fields. We were there during early beet harvest. There were trucks on the roads and harvesters in the field. We picked up one sugar beet and tried to make dinner with it. It was okay, but kind of sweet for dinner. We got our transitions for canoe to bike or vice versa down to 20 minutes, which made travel fun. We got to experience both worlds in a fluid way. It was especially fun with paved boat ramps where we could keep our feet and gear out of the mud. We'd land and step out of our canoe and, like a well-oiled machine, assemble the trailer, load up, and bike up the ramp and onto the country roads.
The Red River seemed to be a river that is the same as it was 100 years ago. No landmarks, mud, gumbo, as the locals call it, down so low that it was so hard to get out of the river. You felt the immense power of the river. Ripped trees, mudslides, trees dropped and scars on trees from ice and storms 40 feet above the water. The water level was low when we paddled, but you could still feel the strength of the floods.
Oh.
Okay, so this just watercoloring through a town after we left, going to Grand Forks, and again, just tons of sunflowers. I kind of got into the sunflowers. I like the sunflowers on the side. Okay.
We spent 2 nights in East Grand Forks. It gave us a full day of city living. We stayed in a Minnesota State Recreation Area campground constructed right in town along the river where there were houses before the flood of 97. From Grand Forks.
And you would always see this, are trying to figure out an outlet to put your phone into. So finding a part in a pavilion was a treat. And I found my seat could hold my phone, so it would hold it up. My little invention. Okay, one. Are you done? We're ready. Oh, so this is Grand Forks at night under the lights of the bridge. So this was right next to the campground. And
Oh, great. Okay. From Grand Forks, we paddled near Cool Stump Ruins and camped near Oslo City Boat Landing and met some sociable penguins at Drayton Dam. That's just a little further.
this is the sunset in Oslo. It's our camp. This was actually their city camp right there. And these were our pelicans by the Drayton Dam. Okay. While canoeing north of Grand Forks, we started seeing bison bones embedded in the river banks. First, it was just one at a time, and then we started to see multiples: leg bones, shoulder bones, ribs, jaw bones. When we got to the Drayton Dam, there were thousands of bones. The boat landing seemed like it was made out of bison bones. We asked around, but we did not learn exactly how old they are.
We pulled out of the river, the Red River at the 175 bridge. That was the end of our Red River experience, scraping mud off.
Every day on the Red River got muddier and muddier, like that you couldn't even move your feet. It was beautiful, but you couldn't move your feet.
We immediately stepped in poison ivy, so we headed to the laundromat in Halleck. While waiting for our clothes to dry, the owner of the laundromat invited us for breakfast, Todd and Kathy. What a treat. Eggs, fruit, toast, and coffee. Oh, north section. From Halleck, we biked.
So this is going from the border then to Lake of the Woods is this section here.
All the way to Rainy, actually.
Rainy Lake, right? Okay.
From Halleck, we biked east and traveled slowly up out of the Agassiz Lake bottom. In Badger, we met an artist, Sherry Kruger, working
Here's Sherry. Okay.
on a huge ceramic mural for the town. We also got to talk to her husband, Jack, who's a biker. After a few days of battling headwinds, we arrived at Warroad at the western shore of Lake of the Woods.
That's like a little thing. Okay, at Warroad, we camped in the city campground right on the beach. The forecast called for very low winds from the west. Perfect. We loaded up and started paddling at sunrise in calm water. Our plan was to paddle along the south shore of Muskeg Bay to Rocky Point. Okay, so then you can show up here. Oh, sorry. So you can see where we're going to see. We did that black arrow is the part we were going to do. The lake bottom is shallow, a long way out of shore. I bet we were a half a mile from the shore to be where we was deep enough to put in the paddle. So we used a compass, a map, and the edge of the shallow water to guide us to Rocky Point. Slowly the waves increased, whatever caused them. They intensified and we felt a bit apprehensive. We finally made it to Rocky Point, which had a resort and a nice harbor. We landed and quickly decided we would bike the rest of the way to Zippel Bay State Park. We do not know what it would be like to be on that lake when it was windy because there was no wind at all. We have no idea where the waves came from. It just was like weird waves.
During 2 nights at Zippel Bay State Park, we really got to take in the grand scale of Lake of the Woods. We also got to talk to anglers docking at Zippel Bay Harbor. They caught a few fish and had a lot of stories.
So here are some of the fishermen.
After Zippel Bay, we biked to a landing on the Rainy River.
And where did we go? We went to, it wasn't an exact one, right? We tried Wheeler Point, but we didn't.
right, but we were
Right.
but we were above Baudette,
Yeah, so above Baudette.
between Wheeler Point and Baudette.
Yeah. So somewhere we were trying Wheeler Point, but there was way too many boats by Wheeler Point. So we did more by Baudette.
Really wavy.
But that was really wavy day, right?
After Zipple Bay, we biked to a landing on the Rainy River where we paddled upstream for 3 days. There was minimal current. The Rainy is a beautiful river with very few boats, except where it flows into Lake of the Woods, where the boat traffic for walleye fishing is insane. Camping, signage, and landings on the Rainy River were excellent.
Yeah, and really good campsites. So if you ever wanted to camp, it's a really good place to camp.
No place to pay either that I remember.
Okay, and this is, did we talk about Baudette? This is Baudette. So this was actually going into the city, and we could go get groceries. The grocery store was right there, and then we canoed just a little further down, and this was the campground in Baudette. And then we just went back into town to watercolor some of this is the Rex Hotel. And then these were some other
Frontier Park.
These are other landings on the Rainy.
That's the dream, is to get a shelter like that.
Right. So these are all Rainy. Okay. Did you already finish Nelson?
Well, now we got out of the Rainy River at Nelson's Landing, biked to Nelson's store for ice cream sandwiches, and camped at Lowman Park.
And this was on the way to Lowman Park. So this was just is that the state park?
Yeah.
There was a state park with a falls. So there were rapids. And then this was Lowman Park. And again, nice because it rained, so you could just put the whole canoe right underneath there and just camp right next to it.
We can't just flip our canoe over.
No, so then this is actually, we're under the pavilion and our canoe's there and our tent was right there. So everything was next to each other at Lowman. Okay, and this was you want to describe that one?
Oh, just the water.
It was a well that was there, and so we filled up all our gallons with this water. It was established in 1944 by the Erickson brothers with a 3-inch casings. So we thought that was an interesting thing, and we just filled up our water there.
We then we biked into International Falls, where we hung out with Smokey the Bear and the ghosts of Bronco Nagurski and Tammy Faye Baker. We finished our trip at our friends Robin and Becky. That's not Robin and Becky.
They're Robin.
On Rainy Lake. And we spent the night there. The next day, Robin and Becky took us for a boat ride with my brother, who came and got us, to preview the first few miles of our trip the next summer, where we will sneak behind islands down a bay to Voyageurs National Park, where they pointed out our first portage. While on the boat ride, we stopped at Ernest Oberholzer's Mallard Island, where we learned about this conservationist who was instrumental in protecting the land that became Voyageurs National Park.
So these are all the interiors of all the cabins that are on the islands. There's like 5 islands, right? Or something.
Yeah,
like we just went to one island. This was at their cabin, and this is inside the Rainy Lake cabin that we stayed at.
So in next year, June of 2022, we'll start paddling without bikes on Rainy Lake and head east through Voyageurs National Park and the BWCA. We'll pick up our bikes at Grand Portage and finish the circle of Minnesota in St. Croix Falls.
Okay, and that's it. So that's the whole thing. So that's what the red is what we did, and the blue is what we have to do this summer.
So do we unshare, or what do you do now?
Yeah, I don't know. There we go. Okay, so let's see. So we go back to Zoom?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, here, and then what, we then stop our sharing?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
stop share. Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Yay. Very nice. Thank you.
Lots of
Okay.
clapping.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Oh,
Love the
there's
pictures.
Glenda. Hi, Glenda.
Hi, wow, this is so great. I'll never forget eating dinner on Dave and Julie's patio last summer and chatting with you guys at your campsite.
Yeah, and that was one of those calm days that the next, it was so calm that night, and then we just, that was my worst day, was that next day. It was.
Oh gosh. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Oh, this is just great. You guys are amazing.
Yeah, any questions?
Sure, yeah, I got
did
a
a-
couple of them. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I did a canoe marathon on the Red River in 1980 something, and it hasn't changed a bit.
I don't know.
Oh,
So how far did you do the whole thing?
We did Grand Forks to Winnipeg.
Oh my gosh.
holy cow.
Whoa, I give you credit.
It was when I was younger, but yeah, but really it hasn't changed a bit. And you just couldn't get out because it's so mucky and you
Oh, it's
sink in the bottom. So totally
Right.
understand that.
Okay.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so I wondered a couple things. One, how tippy was your canoe with the bikes in it? Seems like it would be a little bit top heavy. And secondly, on the red, were there a lot of hidden trees and stuff underneath, tipping hazards?
It did feel tippy on, I think we maybe could have done Lake of the Woods, maybe if we didn't have the canoes, the bikes in there. I think I might have felt better.
We actually didn't know how tippy it was because we never
We-
tested the limit, but you felt the kind of pendulum effect of it, but we never really, we never tested it. Like you'd be out in big waves and it was unfamiliar. So just like twice, 3 times, maybe we said, oh, this is a little crazy. And then we would just go the safe route. But just paddling and just small waves, it never felt bad. And when they got big, and then, they talk about, whatever, final stability or whatever, it seemed like none of those rules really exactly applied. They showed diagrams of a canoe like up sideways on a wave, or it just felt mysterious. We didn't know what it was.
The windiest I remember it was being on the Rainy River. We had a windy stretch, and I remember writing in the journal that you had to actually time your stroke so that because the wave was high enough, and so you could make it so that you would actually put too much water into the canoe. So
Yeah, it was a little heavier than we're used to.
we're used to being so light when we go.
So I think it's tippier. And
it was definitely tippier.
And I think just being a little bit tippier can tip you over. And then we just thought we had everything tied in when it was wavy, but then we thought, God, if it's tipped over, then we don't really have a plan B either. Like, it's upside down with bicycles hanging under. So.
Okay, and you had one other question. What was your other one?
Yeah, I just wondered if there were a lot of sunken trees and stuff on the red.
Well, the main thing that where we think we got the hole is the very beginning was rocky. So I guess there used to be a lot of rock dams. And so we think that's what we probably hit that got the hole in it.
There's little rapids too. And you could actually, you actually had to point at little V's and go through them. And a couple times we hit a rock square on,
and
we
really
can't see anything. It's all mud.
And we kind of thought there'd be a lot more trees just because of the water being low. But we were able to avoid that. So that was not an issue.
Yeah, after that first day, you couldn't even find a rock if you wanted to.
No,
Actually,
just mud.
just mud.
Just mud.
Thanks. Yeah.
So,
What kind of canoe did you have? You did a fiberglass repair there?
Kevlar Winona Odyssey.
Oh,
From before the Minnesota 2, it was like, I think kind of that style of canoe.
oh, okay. Oh, wow, that's
But it has
Cool.
front floats on it. It's a little kind of, I don't know, maybe a little fuller than Minnesota too. I don't know.
Oh, wait, when you said the rock dam, what does that mean? Is this that natural rocks in the river or?
No, I don't know what they were built for, but and we
It's just
never
I think
even,
I think for farming.
yeah,
I think
so.
I think farmers all have, I
agriculture.
think for agriculture, people had like a lot of dams to things. And I think then with the flooding, I think then the whole river got more.
And we avoided, we saw them on the map and we heard them described and they, in the map and articles, and it said they're difficult to portage over. You have to, pull over them. And we didn't have really a plan for, like taking the canoes, the spikes out and resting them on the rocks and then pulling the canoe over. We couldn't imagine how we would do it. So we just planned that in our bicycling.
So then
days.
so the ones that were marked on the map, we just,
Avoided
we avoided them.
It's avoided.
So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
so we didn't go around them. Yeah, so
Were the rock dams all the way? I mean, I was sort of.
We never
curious.
saw-
I
we
was
never
interested-
saw one.
Yeah, I
actually
never
never
saw
No,
one.
they went
Okay.
all the way
Yeah.
across. They would go all the
And
way
they were, I
across
mean, we
and-
have those here, they're built up by the farmers a while ago to raise the water level so they could pump to irrigate and stuff.
Yeah, they were all the way across. There wasn't
Yeah. They weren't
creative.
partial.
yeah.
When I was out in Pennsylvania on a trip, they had, the wealthy people had dammed up an area up in the mountains. And they used it to cross over with their wagons and stuff. And of course, eventually it gave and the whole town flooded.
oh, no.
Yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, so thanks for your presenting your trip. It just, with COVID, I've been staying closer when I travel, like instead of traveling out of state or out of the country. So it just reminded me of all the pretty places there are in Minnesota.
Oh,
My
yeah.
favorite being the Mississippi River. I don't bike, I don't canoe, but so tell me, what were the things you were glad you did on the trip? And what would you, was there anything you would change or do differently?
I love I actually love the locks. The locks were really enjoyable. It was just, you felt like that just something just opens up for you. Like, like you're like, you don't pay any money for this. And this thing just opens up and brings you where you want to go. And that was just kind of a surprise that I was thinking I wasn't going to have. It seemed like a little too much stuff to me, but I guess we're going to do the rest this summer, so we'll see. But it was a lot of, you had to worry about your canoe, you had to worry about your bikes. So that was one reason we always camped. It was just easier because you had everything right with you. But you felt a little bit like, I guess I wish I could have just run into a town easier. That was a little harder to just go explore a town because you felt like one of us had to be with the stuff,
Right.
but we were
Right.
on a mission to do it. So it wasn't like you felt like you had a lot of time. So, but we felt like it would be a really good trip to just do down the Mississippi with canoes, and you don't have to camp it. You could hotel it because there's a lot of cities, and it's really
Right.
pretty exotic looking from the water,
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if there were fewer boats out. Well, you said once you got past Prescott, there were fewer boats out than you expected. And I
Yeah,
wonder if
yeah.
COVID has just kept people home or whatever. They cashed out their boats for whatever reason.
I think that they were focused around a couple areas like Wabasha and then up to the very southern edge of Lake Pepin.
And
It was so busy and it's a very narrow channel there. And so it was crazy.
Yes.
And it also depended your day. So again, that day that it stormed so bad, that was a Saturday. So that's why we woke up super early, is we just thought, oh, well, we'll just wake up super early and we'll be done canoeing by noon. And then that way the boat will beat most of the boat traffic, most of them come out at noon, like that. Well, we didn't have to worry because it stormed so much. Nobody was out anyway, and we didn't get anywhere, so, but, so that it depends on your day and what time of day. Like when we came through Wabasha too, it was a Friday night and everybody was done with work. So everybody's out on their boats. And I will say, I think because of COVID, some more people are sometimes on their little houseboats and out there. Cause I think they feel like that was their little, space,
Well, yeah, I don't think they go real far.
Yeah.
from their
No, it takes a lot of gas to go far in a houseboat.
Yeah.
Right. I think my favorite might be, I don't know, might be the Rainy River, maybe.
Mhm.
It was real pretty too, but we did have the advantage of kind of low water, so there wasn't much of a current. I could imagine it'd be a lot of work if it was
Yeah.
higher water.
And we really feared that was our own, it was interesting going around this loop that was gonna be our only upstream. And so the people we met up there, we met because we were trying to research the Rainy River. And so we met them through that, but the Rainy River at that point, again, maybe because this is a year of drought and the water's not high, none of it was that bad.
No, it was
you know.
easy.
So
It was almost calm. Yeah, almost no current.
So
Very
there was
nice,
a
thank you.
question, there was a question in the chat. You went to a lot of, small town festivals and things like that. Did you plan things around that, or did you just arrive and there it was?
We never.
We planned. I did know about the corn days. My memory is that we already missed it, that it was Saturday. And I thought I tried looking online to figure out what it was. I don't think I would have just missed it by 2 hours if I would have known that one was 2 hours, because it just it was like just the first year we got married and it was the first thing we ever did. So it was like, oh, that'd be cool. But I just thought, okay, it's not going to happen. It's too windy. We missed it by a day, But then also when we got to town, we're like, we just missed it by 2 hours. And I think that day we kind of sightseed because we were like, oh, we already missed the corn thing. But
We were really lucky because I think Pipestone, that's just their annual event, and we just happened to be there, and there was a poster in the campground, and so we went. And the other one was the Movies in the Park. It's an annual thing, and it was the Cheaper by the Dozen, a very good movie, and and it was a once a year thing, and we were camped just across the river from the
I think the
blow up screen or whatever.
the Houston musical, I think every week you would probably get something at the Houston. So
We got a movie in Pipestone too.
What movie?
One about animated one about skeletons, about Day of the Dead, I think.
Oh,
Anyway,
okay. No, we did not. That
we
was
didn't
just
plan it. We
yeah,
really
that's
lucked
just that
out.
thing of just researching as soon as you kind of get to the campground of seeing what's around like that.
Just lucky.
Well, that was awesome. You paddled right by my grandparents' house in the Rainy River.
Oh, where's that?
I was watching it was 3 miles out of town, to the east of Badet. But I'm like waiting for that watercolor, but no.
Okay,
Oh.
okay, wait, east of where?
East of
East of
Badet.
Oh,
Oh,
we put in, and yeah, we biked really we canoed to Badet, and then we camped in the Badet campground. That wasn't free. That was $15 or something.
okay.
But very nice. And then we paddled
Okay.
upstream. So you're on your grandparents, you said?
Yep.
On the American side.
Yep.
Oh, very cool.
Oh, yeah, we really were. It was difficult to determine which side to be on, because there was we had to think about the current and stuff, and we did just learn that it's okay to paddle along the Canadian shore. For a while during the height of COVID, they were saying stay way away, but apparently anyway. Oh, do you want a watercolor of your grandparents of the river or what? We might have one of that campground. I don't know.
No.
We had a sale and a bunch of them sold.
Actually,
most of them in these images aren't around anymore.
Yeah.
We had a thing.
benefit. We gave it to the Northeast Minneapolis Art Association, the money.
They're
So,
gone.
but someone was from Baudette, and they did get the Rex Hotel because they recognized the Rex Hotel. So that was funny.
Yes. There's some chat messages saying how wonderful the watercolors are and stuff. So awesome.
It's really fun. It ends our day a little. We used to paddle until dark, and now we have to end early, so we get our little sketch done.
Are
The
you
buffalo bones.
What's that?
The buffalo bones. In the
Yeah.
Red River. Do you think they might be hundreds of years old?
Yes, but and it might be all over the map because I don't know. So were they drinking out of the river and died there and then got covered with dirt? Or is all of northern Minnesota and North Dakota just littered with bones and the river exposes them? And could they be at one strata be 500 years old, at another strata 200 years old? I don't know. And I think we were gonna call the Grand Forks museum and ask them, and maybe we still will. I'm curious. I don't know why.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know where they're from.
Yeah,
I wonder if it was a source of food for the Indians or something, in the old days.
Yeah.
In the winter time, maybe. I'm just guessing.
It's really there were so many where they were fishing by that dam, Drayton Dam, that it's literally just like shards, and big chunks all everywhere. You were walking on them everywhere for like a 2-acre area. Just
Yeah, people are
nonstop.
just standing on them fishing, like they're
Yeah,
just standing on the
bones
boats
everywhere.
It's like, whoa.
And you're right. They are, hundreds of years old, I have to imagine. Some are darker, like some were like dark gray, and then others were whitish. So I don't know. But they are very cool.
Yeah, it really made you feel like you were in on a museum.
Yep, like archaeological
dig or something, it was very cool.
There was a question in the chat from earlier on in your presentation when you were talking about biking on those 4 bike trails. And the person was wondering if you had a favorite trail.
I think that'd be the Root River Trail. Root River Trail, I think. It's just so long and fun, and people are using it, and it's wooded, and it goes by the river, and you cross the river and all that, and there's adorable towns. It's just so good.
It was probably our longest one too.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, so some of those are fairly short, so we ended up having this bike map, and so it was just a state bike map, and it just showed all the bike trails. So I just was sitting there trying to connect the dots, So it was just kind of a thing that was like.
But that was pretty amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that was my favorite too. And it looked like someone going to Trempealeau. That was one of our locks. We went through Trempealeau. I saw you're having a trip to Trempealeau. That's a really nice area.
Yeah.
I think it was our second to last lock, that we went through.
On that side, it was on the
Wisconsin side, right?
That was always hard for us to figure out which side it was going to be.
Another question we have, Diane, where did you exit the river in International Falls?
I'm sorry, what?
Where did you exit the river in International Falls?
I grew up there.
Oh,
we biked into International Falls. We got out of the river at Nelson Landing, which is before, there's a couple sets of rapids in the Rainy River.
Okay.
And we just avoid near that state park. And we just, we might have had one more day before we had to end the trip, but we kind of wrapped it up, got out at Nelson's Landing, got our ice cream sandwich, and
this is the way the map looks. That's what's left of our map. So, but we do have, for numbers people, we did kind of keep track of the days we were canoeing and the days it was pretty even, about 20 days for canoeing and 20 days of biking. So when there was half days, I just kind of put those together. We biked 871 miles and we canoed 365. So totally 1,236 miles is just, again, this is just we never clocked anything except just going back to kind of Google Maps. So, this is nothing official. We didn't use any kind of,
there won't be an official report.
There won't be.
Are there any other questions?
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you
Well,
so
I just
much.
have to mention, I put in the.
Fabulous presentation.